The transition team is essentially accusing Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office of bad behavior and how it obtained these emails, and suggesting investigators may have violated the Fourth Amendment by collecting that information without a warrant. Now, in a letter to top lawmakers, the transition team claims in August the special counsel's office requested tens of thousands of emails, along with laptops, cell phones, and other materials belonging to 13 top transition team members. That request was made to the General Services Administration. That's the government agency that provides office space, supplies, and email services to presidential transitions. Now, at issue is who that material and data belongs to. The GSA claims it's government property and it should be accessible to law enforcement officials, but the transition claims it belongs to them, that it shouldn't have been handed over without their consent, and that much of it is protected by presidential and attorney-client privilege. And their letter states, in short, since the GSA improperly provided them to the special counsel's office, the PTT, which is the presidential transition team's privileged materials, have not only been reviewed privately by the special counsel's office without notification to TFA, they have also been misused publicly. Now, the special counsel's office is pushing back, and in a statement to BuzzFeed News said, when we have obtained emails in the course of our ongoing criminal investigation, we have secured either the account owner's consent or appropriate criminal process. And today on the Sunday shows, a number of Democratic lawmakers said, despite these new revelations, or accusations rather, they continue to have full confidence in special counsel Robert Mueller.
I do not at all believe that that Mr. Mueller's has been compromised or his investigation. I think he's beyond reproach.
Now, President Trump is spending the weekend at Camp David, meeting with members of his cabinet and doing some phone calls with world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. He spoke to him earlier today, and we're waiting to hear more details from the White House about just how that conversation went. Jillian?
Garrett Tenney live from the White House. Thanks for that report.
The House Intel Committee grilled FBI Director Andrew McCabe right there in the center of the screen for nearly 8 hours yesterday behind closed doors amid concerns of political bias within the FBI. This, as our next guest makes a case for why President Trump does not need to fire special counsel Robert Mueller over those collusion concerns. Here with more is longtime Democrat, Harvard Law professor emeritus, and the author of that book, Trumped Up. Alan Dershowitz joins us today from South Florida. Alan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, there are a lot of people on the political right who have said, you know, Robert Mueller, he's overstepped his boundaries. He's really got to go. You say absolutely not, right?
I don't think so. I think that if I were the Trump administration's advisor, I'm not. I want to be clear. I'm an analyst here, but I'm giving you my 50 years of experience. I would play the refs. I would keep the pressure on Mueller. Mueller is very concerned about his reputation. He has been accused of conflict of interest, of not getting warrants, of using an improper source for a warrant. They have him where they want him. He'll probably want to lean over backwards now to make any close calls in favor of Trump. So I think it would be now foolish to try to fire him, which would create a political scandal, probably a move toward impeachment, although there'd be no justification for that. They should leave it be. If they want to keep the pressure on, keep the pressure on.
Well, Alan, don't you think the Trump team, the people who are able to speak out on television and elsewhere, are playing the refs at this point, saying, hey, this guy's got some problems. He hasn't done his team any favors by having a bunch of people who appear to be partisan on his team?
And he's playing right into their hands. I have to tell you, I had an enormous amount of respect for Mueller, having seen him up close when he was in Boston and in the government. He's not playing this effectively. He's being sloppy. When you're going after the President of the United States, you make sure your personnel are not overtly biased against the target. You call them all in and you say, are there any emails? Are there any messages that are going to be embarrassing? Show me everything. Right. And then the FBI agent, he should have come in and volunteered when he was appointed and said, let me show you these messages. You may not want me. And then not getting a warrant for thousands and thousands of emails from the transition team. They may eventually win, but it is not a black and white issue. It's a close question. You wear belt and suspenders when you're going after the president. You get a warrant.
That's a good way to put it. Meanwhile, you told our producer you were really outraged this morning over this story from, I believe, Politico, that the Obama administration deliberately undercut efforts to take down a drug cartel linked to Hezbollah to keep the Iran deal alive, right? Quickly.
If this is true, number one, it shows that presidents do interfere with Justice Department decisions about who to go after. Number two, it shows how far Obama was willing to go to get this terrible deal that was so one-sided, that Congress opposed, that the American people opposed, and he's prepared to make this kind of deal with the devil to get it. Shame on him.
Yeah, no, if you're right, if the story is true. Alan Dershowitz, thank you very much for joining us today from Miami. Enjoy the weather down there.
Thank you.
Welcome back. FBI Director Andrew McCabe facing the House Intel Committee today amid some new calls for his removal. This, as the credibility of Robert Mueller's Russia collusion case is called into question once again. The Trump transition team saying that the special counsel improperly obtained thousands of documents illegally. So what does that mean, and are criminal charges possible? Here to discuss is Todd Pyrer, who's Fox and Friends correspondent, also a lawyer.
I'm going to put the legal hat on today.
Yes, so you're going to answer all of these questions for us and tell us what is going on here specifically. Just begin from the start.
At its core, this is a battle between the Trump transition team, who says these are our documents, they shouldn't have just been given out, versus the Bob Mueller team and the General Services Administration, who argue that anything, like you said, that ends in a .gov is property of the government. They can do whatever they want with it.
Just go in and say, hey, I want these, or not even ask,
not
just
even
take
ask.
them. Okay.
What makes this situation so intriguing is this timeline that exists in this situation. There's an individual, his name, I'm going to make sure I get it right, Richard Beckler. He was the general counsel for the General Services Administration. According to the Trump transition team members, there was an agreement that if any request was made by the government for any of these Trump transition team emails, documents, whatever, that Beckler and his GSA would give the Trump transition team a heads up, say, hey, you know, these have been requested. If you want to fight it, you go fight it. That gentleman actually passed away. And in I believe, June, and then in August of 2017, August of this year, there was an actual letter, not a subpoena, from GSA, or to GSA, from the Mueller team. And the GSA was just like, okay, here you go. Here are all the documents. And
so did someone replace this Beckler individual?
It wasn't a replacing necessarily. It was a guy that was under him who sort of took the lead. It was a career individual there at the GSA.
So he started skipping the step of informing the Trump transition team.
Sure. And as a result, we have this letter from the Trump transition team lawyer that says, this is a violation. We didn't get a chance to look at these documents, make sure that there were no privileged documents in there. And as a result, what I anticipate is that this is going to end up in a court. And the argument that the Trump transition team people are going to make is that anything that you acquired vis-a-vis these documents, anything that these documents led to in terms of an interrogation, an interview of anybody else, is what's called fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning you can't use it in any subsequent prosecution, i.e. in the Mueller investigation. Obviously, the Mueller team is going to say, it ends in a .gov, no expectation of privacy. We have it. We can use it.
So they'll try to argue that this was just a agreement, not a legal necessity, is what the Mueller team will try to say.
I've read that they're not even going to say there was any agreement, any meeting of the minds there. So I have a hunch this is going to end up in a court of law.
Yeah. All right. Well, a lot of things ending up in courts of law these days. All right, Todd, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll see what happens.